You need this movement in your downswing to play good golf. We're going to talk about shallowing the downswing, something we see with all elite golfers. I'm going to share with you how. So I really think it's key to understand the differences between our hand path and our club path. Now this might sound technical, it really doesn't need to be, but it is a major part, and how the hands will influence what the club's doing. So what I was showing there in my rehearsal was two very different movements. The first one, I showed where my hands were coming in closer to my body, but you can see what that starts to do with the club shaft. And I often see that when golfers are trying to pull their hands down, they get the club shaft very steep. Often they get the lead wrist cupped or in extension, and that causes that club face to be wide open. Lots of bad shots come about from there. The second one, I was trying to feel that the hands worked a little bit more in front of me, because they've got to move from here to about here somewhere. So they've got to move down and forwards, right? So they're happening gradually. My hands are working a little bit more out in front of me to give me room to help shallow that club shaft. So my hands are working a little bit more out to allow the club to work a little bit more behind me, or shallowing as we tend to call it in this start of the downswing movement. And that's something we really see with the majority of all elite golfers, is wherever they are at the top of the backswing, they tend to have this shallowing movement at the start of the downswing, and we see their lead wrist work from a little bit of a cupping movement, a little bit of extension to flexion. Whereas with the majority of amateur golfers, we see the opposite. Okay, we see a pulling down movement, we see this cupping in the wrist, wide open club face, real poor club face control from there. That shallowing movement is a big power source as well. Big power source. We're almost letting the club work on a longer journey, so it's got more time to build up speed and energy, whereas the quickest way to get the club to the ball is straight down, but that's not the most efficient way for me to swing the golf club or max out my club head speed. So this is a move I need more in my golf swing. I'm definitely working on it myself, is I'm trying to get the feeling, and this brought me to the thought with this video, I'm trying to get the feeling that my hands work a little bit more out. I'm trying to get the sensation that the butt end of the golf club points a little bit more in front of me rather than the butt end of the club pointing down. I tend to get my hands a little bit in and the club a little bit out, so I'm trying to feel the opposite movement. Hands a little bit out so the butt end of the club points ahead of the golf ball, and that will allow the club shaft more space, more room to shallow in that start of the downswing movement. So again, top of the backswing, butt end of the club a little bit more out. Now you may be someone who wants to focus on the wrists, the butt end of the club head itself falling, or maybe even the trail hand. I was with a lesson earlier, and we were working on a movement here, and he said almost like sort of catching raindrops. I hadn't heard that explanation before. I don't know where he got it from. I'll have to ask him, but almost catching raindrops with the trail hand here, and that could be a good thought for you. So I'm trying to get this sensation, okay, because the more external I can stay with this trail arm, trail shoulder at the start of the downswing, the better. What we don't want to start to see is this movement where my hand is working internal in front of me too early. So it's trying to get this sensation with that wrist movement here that I'm keeping my fingertips more behind. And I love getting golfers doing a wall drill, a wall exercise. I'd get you standing a couple of foot from the wall. I'm just going to use my simulator screen here. And what I want to try and get is my hands working a little bit out away from it, but the club dropping more down that screen, down that wall behind you. So you might hold the club the wrong way around, put a sock over the club, whatever you need to do. Now if I just hold it with my trail arm here, you'll see my trail arm staying in this position, not this position. So my elbow staying down and low and in front of me, not out and high, which is steepening the club shaft. So it's this sensation I'm trying to get at the start of the downswing. Hands working a little bit out, the club dropping a little bit more behind me. And you can see that actually gets my forearms a little bit more level rather than that trail arm too much on top. So I've mentioned probably 5, 6 different feels for the same movement. Now that doesn't mean use all those swing thoughts. That means find how your brain works for you. Are you somewhere where you want to focus on the button, the club pointing a little bit more out? Someone who wants to focus on an external thought of the club dropping a little bit more behind you? Or do you want to focus on a body movement, like where your hands are or what the shoulder's doing? And there's no wrong or right. You've got to find what works for you. So do the drills. I'd stop at the top, get that sensation in the arms, working a little bit more in front of you, that club dropping a little bit more behind you. I like the thought of the butt end of the club, as I said, pointing out in front of the ball at the start of the downswing. Now that sensation for me is almost like I wait a little bit in that transition. Okay, that I don't get too eager and pull the club down. So you may just do a little stop at the top. This is a good way to start this. Then feel it drops before you rotate. Now, that feels big to me, and I'll look back on camera and go, I need it more. It's not enough. That's the benefit of using some video, getting some feedback. It feels a lot to me. It really does, but I look at it and go, I need more, I want more. So it's trying to get that feedback that you really need, but shallowing that movement, great, great move. Now, the balance was all over the show, but the strike felt very good. The efficiency was through the roof. So I slowed it down to 75 miles an hour, but I got an efficiency at 1.37, so a really good efficiency. That's about as good, as high as efficiency as you can get with an iron in your hand. So there must have been a very good sentence of strike there. And that's what I really want to get. When I get my arms in the club out, I tend to struggle more, if anything, with a toe strike. So that feeling of my arms working a little bit more out, it can help me find the middle a little bit more often. So again, I'm going to get the sensation of the butt end of the club pointing a little bit more in front of me in that start of the downswing move. And I really like that. It feels like I'm hitting these much softer, if I'm honest. It doesn't feel like I'm putting a whole lot of energy into it. I put a target, I'm hitting a 7 iron here. I've got quite traditional lofts. I put the flag out at 165. I flew that 168, which, considering I felt like I didn't hit it that hard, I'm very, very happy with the flight, very happy with the numbers, very good efficiency again. I like this as a movement. As I said, for me personally, I like focusing on where the club, butt end of the club is pointing, and that sensation of almost allowing the club to drop or waiting for the club. Now, you may well have watched some of my videos before, and I've talked about allowing the club to drop or getting the arms working almost more behind you rather than out in front of you. That would be someone who's really struggling with too much of this over-the-top movement where they're getting the hands and the club working out. Now, this might be the feel I ask someone to get, but in reality, as soon as they add rotation, the arms are going to be working away from the body. So this feel may not be for everybody. If you're someone who already gets your arms too far out and the club, you may struggle with this, and you may try and get the sensation that the arms and the club are dropping more behind you. But in reality, we know the arms have to work down and in front of you, and that's got to happen to allow that club shaft to drop or shallow in that first movement. So give it a go. Start with the freezer exercises. Do look back at it on video. Do some where you stop, feel like you drop before you rotate. Do the wall exercise as well. That really helps me get that sensation of what my trail arm is doing at the start of the downswing. If that video has helped, hit the thumbs up, share it with as many golfers as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content just like this. Right now, YouTube is suggesting the next video of mine that's relevant for you. It's just here. Click on it and check it out.